So welcome to our super forum on location targeted and mobile. So we have a pretty exciting hour in store for you. We have about 8 different speakers throughout the next hour. We're going to roll through in rapid fire format. But before we do that, I want to kind of lay the groundwork and some context with some BIA/Kelsey data and analysis of a lot of the themes that we're going to be hitting on with all of these speakers. And the best way to start, or the best place to start in doing so, is BIA/Kelsey's forecast data. So we do this twice a year. Our most recent wave of forecasting just came out a few weeks ago, and this is just the mobile slice. And our forecast shows that mobile ad revenues in the US are going to grow from about $7.2 billion last year up to about $30 billion in 2018. And as we've done in the past, and as you may have seen me present on this very stage, we also segment that. We segment it in a lot of ways, but this particular slide shows the segmentation of the location targeted segment of that ad spend versus the non-location targeted segment of the ad spend. And the definition of what we mean by location targeted we're going to go over throughout the course of this session. But the point is it's growing quickly, and that location targeted segment, the purple section on this chart, it's important to note that this consists of both national advertisers and small businesses. And it's mostly the former at these early stages of mobile's adoption, as often happens with any emerging media. This is mostly national advertisers with larger budgets that are targeting their ads down to local levels. It's also interesting to note that the things that are driving that adoption for them are really the higher performance that's really starting to prove out for ads, mobile ads that are location targeted, and we'll go over some examples of that. And then also the premiums applied to those ad units as a result of their performance and as a result of growing demand, further shifting up these dollars. So further in support of the kind of performance metrics I measured, a good place to start there is to look at usage. So these are Google data that show that in mobile search, and search is just one form of mobile engagement, but a large one that's telling of user intent, 73% of mobile searches result in an additional action or conversion. Now, these are very tangible things for a lot of businesses. We're talking about visiting a store, making a purchase, calling a business. I have a large report that's coming out in about a week about call monetization. So they're very tangible actions. They're also very local actions. Now, also, not only are these things happening to a high degree, but they're also happening quickly. This is a key point because of those conversions, more than half of them are happening within an hour of the initial search, which really says, or really proves out what we've been saying for years, which is mobile searches, mobile users are indeed lower funnel. They are indeed high intent, a lot of commercial intent, with a lot of immediacy. We're talking about an hour away from a conversion. So really what that signals is the opportunity to get in front of them at this key decision-making moment to apply some influence. And those that don't do that are really missing an opportunity. So we're going to get into a lot of the reasons or a lot of the ways that's kind of playing out. So in addition to user behavior, those that do start to apply best practices in location targeted metrics, and we're going to get into all the ways that's happening again, are indeed seeing results. These are data from XAD, which we're going to hear from in a bit, showing higher click-through rates when these different flavors of location targeting are applied in mobile. In addition to the click, what happens after the click is very important. I mentioned calls earlier. These things get us closer to a conversion, closer to a tangible ROI when we talk about phone calls within the types of businesses that want the phone to ring. Restaurants, auto, we're going to talk about auto just with Jose next. And then retail. These are a lot of the verticals we're going to dive down into throughout the course of these speakers. It's important also to note that the advertiser adoption is indeed rising. To go back to the theory that I mentioned earlier on the forecast slide, these are again data from XAD that show that location targeting is actually growing in usage and in user adoption by advertisers. Now, these are different kind of flavors of location targeting that we're going to go over with XAD in a bit, but the kind of more granular forms of location targeting, as opposed to a city level, going down to a neighborhood level, are the types of things that are growing in use and adoption by the buy side. And then what I'll do is I'll leave you with this before we move on to Jose. This is another kind of compelling point about being present and optimized in mobile with location-targeted strategies for national advertisers. So it's often forgotten, based on all of the excitement over the last decade about e-commerce, that e-commerce only represents about 7% of US retail spending. The other vast majority, 93%, is all offline and usually within a close vicinity of one's home. But it's also important to note that 40% of that offline chunk and quickly growing share is influenced online and in mobile, and mostly in mobile and growing quicker in mobile. So that happens to the tune of about $1.4 trillion in commerce. And what it really says is that any national organization that has conversions that take place offline, that is not location targeting, that is not executing best practices in a lot of the things we're going to go over the next 50 minutes or so, with things like the proper calls to action and the proper geo-targeted placement of an ad. Those that aren't doing that are essentially losing out on 40% of their addressable market. So one of those verticals where it's mostly happening offline, closer to 100% of the conversions are offline, is in autos. We heard Chip Perry say that yesterday. So now what we're going to do is hear from Jose Puente at Auto Trader. Jose, if you want to come on up.